Good morning, everybody. How are you? How are we doing today? What are you up to? Apart from watching me, of course, this morning. I hope you're all doing well. I'll just quickly see 57 of you. Well, good morning, Anne. Borada, Hillary. Shidichi. Hi, Brian in Hawaii. How are you? Hello, Janet. Good morning. Morning, Trevor. Hi, Sally. Hi, Joy. Hi, Linda. Hi, Trish. Hi, Joe. Hi, Carolyn. Hi, Sally. Hi, Jill again. Hi. There. I'll talk you through it all now. Good morning, Rosemary. Morning, Carolyn. Morning, Wendy. Hi, Kathy. Good morning, Louise. Morning, Donna. Johnny Good. 62 of you. How wonderful. So this, as I said, this is just a demo. So you may not. Morning, Joy. Morning, D. Bodada. Shidachi. So yeah, as it's a demo, I whistle through these because they're only 45 minutes. I'm also on my own in the shop, so if I have a customer, I will have to abandon you for a minute or two to run down and serve. That's the joy of of being a proper art shop and classroom. It's a free for all of everything arty. Morning, Susan. Um, Morning, Marie from the Gower. Oh, I love the Gower. Three Cliffs Bay, wonderful place. Hi, Amanda. Hi, Sally. Hi, Liz. So I've got these colours out already. I've got phthalo blue, ultramarine, cadmium red, yellow ochre, and burnt sienna. So that's phthalo blue. You could use cerulean. Morning, Joanne. Ultramarine, cadmium red. You could use vermilion, yellow ochre, and burnt sienna. You could use burnt umber as well. Morning, Jane. Morning, Sue. Morning, Sharon. We're all over the UK and further afield today. How wonderful to have 75 of you with me. How lovely. So you may just be able to make out that I've sketched a very rough horizon line with some cliffs and a foreground and a few rocks and things. So I thought I'd do it. Morning, Carol. I thought I'd do it with morning, Libby. Yeah, you should be able to see a screen because I'm streaming now. Morning, Louise. You might need to refresh your screen, Libba. Hello, Sarah, Susan. So I thought I'd be good and try and show you as many different ways of different rocks and stones and textures and pebbles. And I thought, what better way than to do a sort of coastal scene very quickly in 45 minutes. Yes, Jill, it will be posted later. It will stay in the videos section of our shop page. So if you go to this page that you're on now, the Archery Art Shop on Facebook, head to the videos section and you will see this there. Morning, Mary. Morning, Susan. So this is wonderful. I have so many of you with me. 77. Wowzers. I'm like a celebrity. How cool is that? Right, so I've got three brushes. I've got three brushes and an old credit card that I've cut up. When you cut them up, and I cut them up, it's very faint, Joy, but it's more for me to see rather than you to see this morning. Morning, Caroline. So I know where to put things because it's not really a paint. Our Saturday demos are not really enough time for a paint along. So it's good to watch now, ask questions, and then paint later on. Brilliant. Thank you, Rosemary. Morning, Johanna. So when you chop your credit cards up, curve the edges. Make them as curvy as possible. If you've got one of those clippers that you've got, if you do card making or something, to get a curved edge, that's perfect. Because if you've got a sharp edge, it will scratch. But I'll show you. Hi, Margie. That's fine. So I've got my squirrel, a number 4 round, and a number 1 detail brush. I have got two cameras today. I have camera 1 and camera 2 to help me show you how to do the techniques in more detail because we're very fancy here now. So I'm just going to quickly plop in the sky. So I'm going to wet the sky first. Have we got more from Norfolk than we have from Banbury area today, from Oxfordshire? That'd be really cool. So just water to wet the sky area. Don't want to wet it too much, but I want a soft sort of sky with a few clouds. Would be perfect for those of you that live in the Gower, Three Cliffs Bay and everything. How perfect would this painting be? I almost did Three Cliffs Bay. Bit of ultramarine, bit of phthalo blue. When you mix them together, you get an almost cobalt blue, actually. Almost. Hi Joe. Right, so we'll just drop in the colour, and hopefully where it's wet, I'll angle the clouds to create a sort of focal around the mountains or the cliffs. It's drying quite quickly today. The sky isn't the main part. Obviously I could have just done this is how to paint a rock, but it'd be quite boring, so I thought let's make a thing out of it. You can see how the damp paper has spread. Lovely. Smaller clouds towards the horizon helps give depth and distance. I nearly said distant depthance. That would be interesting, wouldn't it? So smaller wobbly clouds, a little bit paler towards the horizon there. So I've just not recharged the brush or refilled it. I'm letting the paint disappear by itself. Now if I add a tiny bit of cadmium red, obviously this isn't to do with rocks, but it is to do with landscapes. So if I add a little bit of cadmium red to that colour, I've got a sort of purpley grey, which is quite nice to add to the base of the clouds. And these will granulate. I am a fan of granulation. Massive fan. And both cadmium red and phthalo blue granulate beautifully. So don't feel the urge to keep up. Just have a watch, put your feet up, have a cuppa. Learn how to do rocks, and then hopefully feel inspired to do it later on. And I can actually see comments today, which is wonderful. Okay, so you can kind of now see where my cliffs are. And I want a nice turquoisey sea, I think. So that's almost dry. Where's my rag gone? I'm just going to soften the area there. Okay. If I can get the sea in nice and quick within the first sky and sea in the first 10 minutes, then we can spend quite a lot of time on the rocks, which is what you're all here for, I imagine. 84 of you. Wow, I'm so happy that you've all joined me this Saturday morning. This is really lovely. You don't know how much it means to me that so many of you actually enjoy listening to my black country waffling. I'm going with a phthalo blue, a little bit of ultramarine, and a tiny bit of yellow ochre. Now that yellow ochre is quite crucial. Not too much, you can see it goes green, but a little bit of it and you get teal. And I'm just going to sort of, I haven't got a really soggy squirrel at the moment. I'm starting from the left hand side and brushing it in, and it will sort of hit and miss, a bit of dry brush work. There will be some dry brush work today as well. Have a fairly calm sea. And I'll come a little bit darker towards the foreground. Isn't that a lovely sea colour? Hi Suzanne. Oh, Brian, I like it, thank you. Oh, from Croatia. How wonderful. Well, I thought it'd be better for all of you, just to put it in situ, and so it makes more sense, really, as a painting. Um, I might just use the same colour, a little bit heavier in the foreground. There we go, sound effects and everything. Now I've had a little bleed into the sky, so I'll have to stick a battleship or something. Thank you. Jackie's being a wonderful, wonderful um, person, and she's typing and supporting queries if I miss them. Well, no one wants a really soggy squirrel. It's like the smell of wet dog. No, it's not really. Probably won't be using this that much now. But you can see we've got almost a whole scene already. I don't like that really dark mark. I'm being fussy, even though it's a demo. Let's just move that out of the way with a damp brush. Okay. While I've been doing the sea. Morning, Amanda. How are you? Oh, hi, Marie. Thank you. It's a lovely colour. Now, obviously, with the sea, it varies depending where you are in the world and even what type of weather you've got, or the time of day, or the time of year. So, the yellow ochre and phthalo blue are really, really useful, and you can either add more ultramarine or even a bit of burnt sienna to darken the colours and change it up a little bit. So I'm going to work on the background cliff, I suppose, first with the number 4 round. A little bit of burnt sienna and a little bit of ultramarine. I'm using a ceramic tile. I saw a wonderful tip yesterday, because plastic tiles, plastic palettes don't work well with watercolours, they repel. Hello, Wendy. Oh, thank you, Hilary. Diolch. So I've made a sort of bluey grey to start with, and I'm going to keep it quite misty. Now, just dabbing off extra colour here and stroking downwards. Now, don't forget, watercolours dry. Come on, my students, 30% lighter. A little bit darker at the top there, and then let's bring that round. I will go a little bit darker. I mean, this is in the distance, but it's a rock in the distance, isn't it? So if you see, let me jump to camera 2. I love squirrels, by the way. There we go. Look, you can see here that there's a lot of texture. Okay, so Helen, the teal colour is phthalo blue, or cerulean works well. A bit of yellow ochre. That makes a really nice teal or turquoise. You can add ultramarine if you wanted to dull it down a little bit, or even a bit of burnt sienna. So the main players are yellow ochre and either cerulean or phthalo blue. I use phthalo blue because it's a bit punchy. Borodagil, good morning. So as that dry brush effect dries, I can go with the same colour over the top, just to give me different tones. But I want it to feel distant, and I'll talk more about dry brushing when we work on the front area. How am I doing? 13 minutes in. Exciting. Now, I have got some browsers in the shop, but I'm hopeful that maybe Kathy will let me know if they need serving. So there you can see it from a distance. Now, this is where the credit card is going to come into play. You can, Lynn, you can join the, if you come onto our shop page, you can watch and see the, go to the video section, and you can watch it then. and it stays there forever and ever and ever. We've got all of our videos dating back. Our very first demo we did live was July the 16th, 2016, and we've done one free demo every single month since then, and we do it the first Saturday of the month. So the next one's on October the 3rd, and it's an autumn woodland in soft pastels. Oh, bless her, Kathy's taking the money. Oh, how lovely. Thank you, Kathy. I'll thank her later. I'll smile when I go downstairs. So this is a big area to do with rocks. It is a lot. It is a lot for the first 30 minutes, Brian. And the reason why I like to work quickly with the sky, I don't like to spend more than 5 minutes on a sky. And the reason is that you lose the randomness of a sky the more you fiddle with it. So the quicker you can do it, the better it gets. And if you missed it, I angled my clouds so they're all pointing as a sort of natural device to lend us to this area. So I'm going to get my squirrel out, but I don't want a soggy squirrel because, as we said, we don't want a soggy squirrel at this moment. And I'm going to go with ultramarine and burnt sienna. I want a sort of browny grey colour. Now, when you work with a credit card, it isn't easy to get straight away. I can't pretend that it is, and I won't pretend that it is. So I want to do it in layers. And I'm going to come down here now. You can see possibly... Oh, maybe I'll look at doing that. I've just painted we've got some pumpkin tea light holders in stock and ceramic that you can paint yourself. And I've just painted one. I've just finished painting it this morning. So when you've got the colour on, you have to wait. If it's too shiny, it's too wet. If it's dry, then you can't do it. So you've got to wait for it to go to a satin finish. So if you angle your head, you can see whether it's glossy or satin. So I've got the credit card. The rougher the paper, the better. And you can manipulate the rocks with your cling film. And what with your cling film? With your credit card. And it gives you a nice dark edge. And layers of rocks. Like that. Look at that. We've got rocks. Oh, thank you, Pauline. I started off in primary education, and when I moved into adult education, I decided not to change how I taught, because I think it's just as important. I noticed that many art tutorials think you've got a degree in it, and they don't explain enough of the basics. So I kept what I used to teach the kids to teach adults. Right, so you can see how that really works. I'm going to go a little bit darker. If you wanted to change the colours of it, you could always tint the rock face a colour to start with. I don't want to go that dark just yet. Isn't it? It looks easier than it is. I'll be honest, Alison. It looks much easier than it is because it's all about waiting. And if I've got some of my students on here already, they can vouch for this. That it's crucial. I'm going to do 3 bands for this cliff. It's crucial that you wait for the right moment to pounce. So you can see here how shiny the paper is because of my lamp. So what I'm constantly doing is bobbing my head up and down, which you can't see because it will show my bald spot. And by doing it, it's sort of, let's get with a slightly bigger rock, a bit bigger card for this. If it's too shiny, it won't work. Let's go with a smaller one now for the smaller bits. So one credit card can actually make a wide variety of smaller size rocks. Look at that. This is just, thank you Donna, I forgot to say, this is, today I'm using Langton. I've run out of Bockingford, so I'm using Langton 300 gram knot surface. A4. That's what I'm using today. I normally use Bockingford, but as I say, I've run out, so I quickly ran. The idea is having an art shop. I just nip down all the time. Yeah, this is it. You see, you've got to be wobbly with it. You've got to form the rocks. So it's not just a matter of going down. You've got to really feel like a rock. Think like a rock. You are a rock. So yeah, it's creating it, and you can see. So how it works is that obviously the rough of the paper would be better, but I didn't grab the rough because I just quickly realised I'd run out of paper not long before. Oh, thank you, a calming voice. Hear that, Jackie? I've got a calming voice. Remember that when you come to work on Monday. The dimples are the dimples of the paper. So when you're scraping with the card, you're pushing the paint into the dimples of the paper and scraping it off the surface of the paper, the peaks. So you push it into the troughs and scrape it off the peaks. And that's what gives it this amazing texture. So the more textured the paper, the better the effect. So if I go a little bit more with this, 20 minutes in, and we've already got cliffs. It's an amazing technique. I tell you, a friend of mine, those of you from the UK, or I think he was quite global, Terry Harrison, if you remember Terry Harrison, who passed away suddenly quite a few years ago. He was a good friend of mine. We worked together at various shows and things. And he was a master at the credit card technique. I tell you, I've never seen anybody wield a credit card so well as Terry Harrison. So it's not a new technique, but it's a useful one. Right, so let me just pop in a little bit of brown here. So again, it's waiting at the right moment. At the moment, it's a bit too glossy. Oh, thank you, Hilary. I try. And it's important to leave gaps, because it's the gaps that work. You could come with a sort of dry brush afterwards. Now, if you notice what's happening here is I've got it a bit too wet. So it's sort of creating, it's filling back in a little bit, but I've got more highlights. So let me zoom out of this a fraction. Look at that. I'll just neaten the bottom up a little bit with a number 4 round. And we'll use this just to paint a few rocks in the water there. So could you see now that that pale bluey grey one that I dry brushed in the back feels softer now because of the darker colour in the foreground. So that just needs to dry for a short amount of time. And then I might add a little bit of sort of beach. If I add a bit of yellow ochre to this and water, but this is all going to be quite rocky here. I wanted to show you sort of like fine shale. Sharon, now I can't see any of all the love that you're sharing, so thank you. But yeah, try not to let Sharon's visuals stall, everybody. Send the fan mail later. Right, so this is a bit of yellow ochre in with the rock colour that I've got here. And I'm going to fade that out a little bit. You've got to hold it totally flat, Joy. So this surface is the important bit. So that goes straight flat onto the paper. And you drag. You don't want to, if you angle it slightly, you'll be scraping on the curve, the edge there, and that will give lines. The broader the area, the better. What you might find easier to do is actually cover a whole half or A5 piece of paper in just a colour of paint and then scrape it with a card to see how. But you really want the whole of the flat surface rather than just an edge or a corner. That's the crucial bit. I don't think I'm seeing everybody's comments at the moment, but thank you. And thank you, Jackie, for catching up for me. So yeah, it's important when you use the card to have the whole card flat. Don't angle it. If I show you here, use that flat. Don't rock it up. Don't rock it down. Keep the whole card flat. And that's why if you use smaller pieces of card, a SIM card, an old SIM card off your phone will work beautifully. So what I want to do is I'll do a bit of shale down here. We'll have a bit of grey shale. So I've got my ultramarine. Add a bit more burnt sienna to a bit more. I've got my burnt sienna. I'll add a bit more ultramarine to it. So it goes a little bit grey. And all I'm going to do is, at the moment, there's going to be a rock there. But this is sort of fine pebbles around the rock. So I might switch to my squirrel. Let's fade that in with the sand colour. So this is a base colour. Now I have gone over some of my rocks that I've sketched. I'm not going to worry about it. That's gone a bit blue. Let's go a little bit more. It's gone a bit brown, sorry. Getting my blue and my brown mixed up this morning. Right, so we've gone for a wash of colour. Yeah, practice, practice, practice. It's always the crucial point of watercolours. And it's stuff we don't like doing, is it? Because we want instant results. I want to see it now. I've seen Barry do it, and he did it. So I want to do exactly what he did, that he spent 25 years doing it. But I want to spend the next 2 minutes and be as good. I know, I'm exactly the same. So I just need that to dry a little bit first. So let's move the camera down so you can see the gravelly grit. So this will work for driveways, for beaches, for soil, whatever you're doing, it works for. And it's a bit of finger painting, believe it or not. Yeah, this is a number 2 Renaissance. It's by ProArty. This is, all my brushes are ProArty today. This is a ProArty Renaissance Squirrel wash brush. It's a pointed wash. Now I've used this for over 2 years, and it has done now nearly 2,500 paintings, and it's only just starting to lose its point. It's an amazing brush. I love it, and in some cases I've done whole paintings just with that one brush. So it's not, yeah, so I haven't got a pet squirrel. So that's almost dry. So I'm going to make a darker grey from ultramarine and burnt sienna. So this is for pebbles, stones, tiny little stones and rocks. 97 of you, my goodness, I'm using a broadcasting software, so I can't see how many people are watching at the same time. Thank you so much for joining me. Right, so I want stones. Now this is almost dry. What I'm going to do is tap like that and tap with my finger. Now what happens is your finger prints the wet paint and transfers it. So lightly tap. Don't smudge. We're not sort of smudging with it. We're tapping. Yeah, what you want is a nice natural hair that's very absorbent, that goes into a really good point. You could use sable, but the size of brush I use, it'd be very expensive in sable. So you don't over tap. And if you can make your taps and your dabs bigger or smaller, it gives the idea of rocks. So not just the lighter parts, but the darker parts or the shadows within them. If you've got gouache, you can add highlights to this just by doing exactly the same method. But with white. This is a number 4 round nylon brush. The only natural hair brush I use is the squirrel. Let me zoom out just so you can see how that's starting to look. Thank you, Marie. Hope you enjoy it when you're able to catch up at another point. So I suppose this is more like shale. I'm going to go a little bit darker, so more paint, more blue and brown. So much stronger because we're going towards the foreground now. Same principle, slightly bigger dabs. Tapping softens it. Which is why it's important not to tap too much. So it creates this lovely a reference picture-ish, Denise. What I've done is what was in my head for this morning didn't exist. So I've hashed together 5 separate photographs to work from, which is why I've not shared it because it doesn't look that great. So yeah, I've got a reference picture. The background cliff and sky and sea was one. The mid-ground rock face was another. But I've made it more rocky than the other because they're white chalk cliffs that I've got on the reference photo. But it was just to give me shape and height. And then I superimposed a second one with the rocks over the top of that one. So sort of reference, yes, but not anywhere that you can actually go and visit, because this is for the demo. I just wanted to give you as much information to help you as possible, and for everything that I wanted to do this morning doesn't exist, only in my head. What a world that is. But can you see how that's starting to look all pebbly and lumpy? And I've left the gaps, so if you see gaps, it's probably where there's going to be a rock. Thank you. Thank you, Jean. Okay. Right, so we're almost on to the main big rocks. Oh, let me just put a little bit down here. I've missed this bit out. That's better. Okay. That's fine. I mean, I can share it. I can neaten up the thing. I have a on my smartphone. I pay 30 odd pound, £34 a year for a program called, what's it called? Light Photo Fox, and it's kind of like Photoshop but for iPhones. And you can delete and erase images and backgrounds and layer and do all that kind of stuff, which is what I do a lot of the time. Let's put a few dark bits there. So we're going to do some bigger rocks. Now I'm going to stay with ultramarine and burnt sienna. And the light's coming from this side. And I'm actually going to start just by painting rocks. Now, what I know from experience of both myself and my lovely students is that when you're painting rocks, they always end up exactly the same shape. You do one, and then before you know it, all of the rocks are identical. So a challenge you will have is to make each rock look different. Yes, Hilary, it's amazing how you can manipulate shapes and do things, because obviously it's your work. I didn't want to ruin your painting when you asked for advice, so I manipulated it so it was still your work. So this is a cluster of rocks. At the moment, it doesn't look like a cluster of rocks. It looks like a mess. But that's all right. We can work it out, as the Beatles said. A little bit darker as we get towards the front. I'm giving it a bit of a wonky bottom because we've got pebbles. We've drawn the pebbles, so we don't want to forget that they exist. Time is running away with us. So yes, next month, October the 3rd, I think, is the first Saturday of the month. And we're doing soft pastels and an autumn woodland. So these are just basic rock shapes to start with. We're laying the foundations of rocks. I want a bigger one there. So think about shape and form. If you just rely on what's in your brain, and that's why I used reference photographs, we've all got preconceived ideas, and I've said this before, of what trees, mountains, rocks, clouds, everything looks like. And when you rely just on your own mind, it all begins to look very much the same. So while I've got these breaks in the water, I'm going to add a few more stones so it'll feel like they're there. So you can see we've got this depth. I'll make a bit of a shadow colour from ultramarine and cadmium red. nice purple colour, a dull purple. Now, if you wanted to, you can add a bit of brown or a bit of ochre in there to dull it down, because yellow dulls down purple because they're complementary opposites. Too much and you get brown. I want to keep it warmer. They do look a bit like guinea pigs at the moment, Louise, yes. Or potatoes. Next they'll look like potatoes with shadow. So I'm keeping just to the bottom or the left hand side. But this isn't it for the rocks, by the way. There is more to happen with them. But this helps to get a bit of texture in sometimes, and to decide which is in front, which is behind. You see? I mean, there's wonderful ways to use to work with rocks in acrylics, and using a flat brush or a filbert brush. Absolutely wonderful to double load a brush. So you can see that they're starting to take shape a little bit. I might even use some of this colour to do a few stones, slightly more red. Well, it's kind of my job, isn't it, Denise? Thank you. When I was when I worked for De La Rowney for acrylics, we only had 45 minutes to do big A3 demos. So you kind of learn how to wield your brushes and shove it on. Because all painting is getting the right colour in the right shape using the right brush in the right place. And once you learn that, you can do things a little bit easier and a little bit quicker. But yeah, do remember that I did it. I've been doing this a long time. Oh, thank you. Right, so I'm just going to lift off with a clean, damp brush the highlights. Of each rock. Start with that bigger one. Let me zoom in on camera 2. Hopefully that will show you a little. Yeah, there we go. But you can see how basic this is looking. Now you don't, when you're lifting out, now obviously these colours are dry. So you might need a bit of water on here to reawaken the pigment. So leave it on for a second or two. You could use a credit card, absolutely. But I'm sort of doing a negative dry brush on this, which will give it a bit of texture. But what I'm conscious of is I don't want to overkill the credit card texture, if you know what I mean. So if there was credit cards all up here and credit cards all down here, it might be a bit too credit cardy. But for practice, absolutely worth it. I need to re-outline that rock because I've just rubbed it out. There. Cheat a little bit. So it's a very damp brush for lifting out, but not a wet brush. If it's too wet, it changes the whole picture and it takes too much off. You could, I think, Denise. I'd be very sparing with a sponge. But what you could do with this is you could dampen the highlight area and then let it sink in and then dab it off with the kitchen roll. That would work. Let's do a little bit more. How am I doing for time? Ooh. Time is nearly up. If we use a little bit of that teal colour left over, I can sort of add a bit of linear work around the rocks, just in the foreground area, just to ground them and sit them in. And you could add, if you wanted to, and again, be very sparing with this, with your sort of purplish colour. If you wanted to add some other lines within the rocks, sort of like crags and fracture lines and that kind of thing, you can do that, and you can bring other areas out that maybe didn't work out with the credit card. Sort of like that. So let me zoom out again. Oh, hi Diane. So there you go. That's kind of rocks and stones in a nutshell. So what we've done is we've done a dry brush cliff face, we've done a credit card rock or cliff face, we've done dabbing with our finger, we've done finger painting, and we've done lifting out as well. You could spatter if you wanted fine areas, but that is very messy and I didn't really want to get into that today. So hopefully you've enjoyed that. It's oh, thank you, Brian. So because I'm not really using a reference photo as much, I wanted my light to come from this area, so I knew all of my shadows have to come from the right hand side and the lower side because the light's coming from that angle. I haven't added shadows because it's not that strong a sunlight. If I wanted to make it feel really sunny, I would add longer, darker glazes beneath each rock and add more depth in the cliff faces. But as it's just a basic demo, it'll be fine. Now next month, because we're using pastels to do an autumn woodland, there'll be a lovely glow to the back of it. So I'll be showing you how to mix blend pastels, do darks, contrasts and autumn colours. So there's loads of techniques in here. Thank you, Anne, for that. And hopefully have a go at some point and see how you get on. And I'd love to see it. If you post it underneath this. Oh, Sue, bless you. And other Sue, thank you. Thank you very much. It means a lot to me, thank you. And it's lovely to have had you all with me. So if you did want to bung £1 in our PayPal account just as a thank you, that would be lovely. But I'm not a beggar, but it does help us afford to me to be here to do it for you. So thank you ever so much for joining me. I hopefully will see you maybe on our other online classes or even at the next demo on the 3rd of October. So thanks ever so much for your company. It's lovely to speak to you and see you, and I'd love to see your comments. If you post when this video finishes, you can add photographs to the comments. So if you wanted to add what you've done in the comments section of this video, it'd be wonderful to see what you've created. So thanks ever so much for joining me. Take care, and I'll see you all very soon. Thank you. Bye bye everybody. Bye bye.